So, good evening, everyone. Uh, Incompetence braying is what we are talking about tonight. Because lately, the noise from those in high places, high office, sounds less like leadership and more like braying. Loud, directionless, and embarrassing. And we have three clear examples we're going to talk about tonight. So, good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and and our friends of the diaspora. It's good to have you back tonight with Breaking the Silence. I'm your host, Dr. Denise Sawyer-Fat Angus, political leader of the Innovative Democratic Alliance. And so tonight we're going to start with braying number one. Yeah? And braying number one is our Dr. Faith um, Israel Brebner, who, uh, who after nearly a year of the ambulance gate, still doesn't seem to know her job description. Okay, so we've been talking about this ambulance for a long time. So let me just recap. Supposedly, the TRHA bought ambulances, 12 ambulances for $17 million. Okay? The secretary insists she was not involved in as if procurement oversight and public confidence doesn't fall under her division. So, in addition to spending this $17 million, they spent $100,000 each to re-outfit them, and in the midst of all of that, have been leasing ambulances from Trinidad up to the tune of about 7 million now. So overall, this whole fiasco has gone beyond 17 million. It's now costing us upwards of $25 million. And to date, the secretary has not called for an investigation or has not done an investigation into the TRHA and these purchases. Yeah? And that is really her job. If you have a public outcry, you have to listen to the public and go ahead and do the necessary investigation that you're supposed to do into the TRHA and this whole scandal and confusion that has been going on for more than a year. So if you're a real leader, you don't just shrug your shoulders, right? You call for an independent investigation. Thankfully, the Office of the Procurement Regulator has finally decided to step in and do an investigation into how this whole ambulance issue is going. And, you know, the incompetence just doesn't stop at the level of the secretary. I mean, the board has no medical director. How? How do you have a TRHA board and or any RHA board without a medical director? Okay, so there's no doctor on the board, I understand, and the board has been operating, but you know what? That means it's not duly constituted, and any decisions can be legally challenged or overturned because the board is not duly constituted. Okay, we continue to have the drug shortages, dengue confusion, and ambulance delays. Ambulance delays where people can't get ambulances. They call for ambulance. They have to put people in a car to get to the hospital. Okay, and that is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And what it demonstrates is that the health sector has collapsed under the secretary. Okay? She needs to acknowledge her failure and she needs to really leave the office. In fact, you know, the chief secretary, he has not done well in not recognizing that the secretary of health has failed. And therefore, the same way that he played shuffle with the secretary of tourism and all that, he needed to do the same thing with health. Health is in a worse position. Worse. Okay? But Tobago deserves more than that. We deserve competent, qualified, and accountable leadership in health. Not just noise, not just excuses, and certainly not braying. So, our second level of incompetence braying goes to Farley Chavez Augustine. You know, when your brain from the top, it echoes for miles, And it's quite unfortunate that after 4 years in office, Farley Chavez Augustine has failed to rise to the stature of statesman. Failed miserably. Let's look at how he started out. He started out in his first month with maybe first couple of weeks with contempt for the elders, telling them, go home and mind your grandchildren. You all remember that? Go home and mind your grandchildren is what he said. Yeah? And then somewhere in the middle of his term, he called the prime minister, the former prime minister, a house slave. Right? No, I don't defend any conduct of what, the prime minister, and the relationship with Tobago. But you see your words, there's some words you do not use as a statesman. And he has not learned that. And then not long after that, or before that, wherever, I missed with the timeline, but he somewhere in there, you're talking about Tobago autonomy, and then you tell the elders again, those who knocking on the door of the casket should stay quiet. Really? But you see, that shows the level. It wasn't a one-off. It shows a character of the person. Okay? Somebody who is supposed to be of a Christian background, religious background, someone who is supposed to be, in office showing statesmanship. And this is not what we are seeing throughout. It's getting worse and worse, right? And so what we are seeing is not confidence, it's arrogance wrapped up in immaturity. That is what we are seeing. Yeah? Yeah, I see you all agree with me that he disrespectful bad. Yes, we agree with that. But you know what truly disgusted Tobagonians? And some of them may be cheering him on, but the majority of Tobagonians were disgusted with the last performance in the assembly chamber. As a former presiding officer, I have to tell you plainly, that display of utter disrespect for the house, shouting across the floor while pointing at the minority, saying, let the jackass break, was beneath the dignity of the office. It was. And coming back, backpedaling to say that, Eric Williams said it, did not change the intent in the house. A statesman does not drag a parliamentary debate into the gutter. When you have facts, you argue the facts. You don't argue with insults. But it tells us when you're willing to go to that level, it means that you have no substance to what you're doing. You can't defend what you're doing. And that is why you end up in the gutter politics all the time. Yeah? And you should have retracted your statement and apologized. Instead, what did he do? He doubled down, right? And the presiding officer let it slide. Well, I tell you, the silence on that speaks volumes, right? So, you know, leadership is an all encompassing, you know, approach. And it's not just about talking big on autonomy and this and that, but it's about your conduct, your courtesy, and your competence. Yeah? And that competence would not only ensure that you would have done an investigation in health, but that you would ensure that your secretaries in the house answer to the people of Tobago when questions are asked of them. Imagine you have some of them with 6 months and more, they have not answered their questions in the house. That shows your incompetence as a leader. Why aren't they answering the questions? Do they have something to hide? Those questions in the house are not being answered to the minority leader. They're being answered to the people of Tobago, something you all never got. But as we're talking about the house, let's go to incompetence braying number 3. Kelvon Morris and the minority bench. The third bray comes from the minority leader himself, Mr. Kelvon Morris, whose job is to hold the administration accountable. Right? But he too has been demonstrating some character flaws that shows a lack of leadership capacity. Yeah? Where it always ends up being a personal attack. Let us not forget when the Secretary of Education criticized her fashion sense, where he criticized her fashion sense as a proof of her incompetence. Yeah? A very sexist type of remark that went along with what he was saying. And the fallout included, yeah, and that was not acceptable. It included the secretary's mother, who responded with vulgarity and showed just how low our public discourse has fallen. You know, in 2022, IDA issued a statement calling for both sides to apologize because we believe that leadership must be anchored in dignity and emotional intelligence. Getting down into the gutter politics is not getting us anywhere because it distracts from the issues. Right? Now we fast forward to this week, you know, just a couple days ago. And yes, the chief secretary was totally out of place for saying what he said in the assembly chamber. But let me tell you, minority leader, you sunk low in your response to him. And I will say it again, there is no role for personal attacks if you have the politics right. If you know you have the facts to question and hold the administration accountable, there's no place for personal attacks. And I know there are people who are supporting you. Yeah. It's a good thing you say that. But let me tell you, anybody else could say it, but not you as the representative, as the minority leader. Okay? Because while the chief secretary has a statesman role to play, you also have a statesman role to play. And the gutter politics does not take us anywhere. Okay? So it's time. We haven't even begun the election yet, and this is the level to which it has descended on both sides. I mean, you have to understand, young people are looking on. All of them have a cell phone, checking what's going on. You think they're not checking you all to see who say what? They check. And then we expect that you behaving like that. How you expect the students to behave? We're having a lot of violence in school, a lot of disrespect, all of that. Where you all think it coming from? You all have to lead by example. You can't expect to penalize the children when they're doing that. And you all, this is what you're displaying? It's totally unacceptable, right? And minority leader, your duty is to demand answers. And I get it that you moved a motion, but you needed to go the extra mile to send the delinquent secretaries who are not answering to the privileges committee. Okay? It's over 6 months. Send them to the privileges committee. You have the right to do that. Yeah? And one of the questions, your key questions you should be asking, how much land has the chief secretary distributed in the last 4 years? As a matter of fact, we needed to know how much land was distributed in the last 8 years. Yeah? Between y'all. To whom, in what sizes, and for what purpose? Yeah? And for how long? Who received government houses? When did they apply? At what point were they on the waiting list? Were you taking people from behind? Is it a lottery? How is it being done? Tobago needs facts, not brain contests. Not brain contests. In fact, Tobago don't deserve that, Tobago deserves leaders with, who are prepared to lead with dignity, discipline, and data. Yeah? And the idea will continue to demand accountability. Yeah, because people at Tobago are embarrassed. That is the talk of the tongue, You know much people traveling in car, embarrassed over how their leaders behaving, because no longer what is happening in the house or on social media stays with us. It grows across the region. It goes internationally. This is what we want people to see, how our leaders are behaving. How could you expect to be a statesman in both of your respective roles when you behave like that? Come on. Totally, totally, totally unacceptable. Yeah? Both of you should go to the naughty corner. Yes. That's it. Go to the naughty corner. And you probably don't need to come out after that. But anyway, we have a short time between now and the end of the assembly term, whenever all you choose to call it. Please, not another display like that. Not another display like that. Regardless of whether it is a part of all your character, get it out of all your. The house is not a place for that. And the responses to what happened in the house, we don't need that either. It's time that we start cleaning up the politics that we're doing. It's time to reset. Clean it up and reset. Yeah? There's enough substance to talk about what this administration didn't do and what the former administration did that was wrong. Yeah? And I still maintain that, Kelvin, you should have talked to your people and get them to give the quarry license earlier. Okay? because it's not up to Trinidad. It should not be up to any central government to say whether we have enough, we don't have enough, whether efficient, we're not efficient. No, give us the license and let us decide and determine how we're going to manage. If we fail, we fail. But at the end of the day, we have a Tobago House of Assembly, and the PNM should have given the quarry license. So those are the facts that we need to be dealing with. Let us stay away. Commit to staying away from the gutter politics and personal attacks. People's personal lives are their personal lives. Political lives and the performance is what we should be attacking. And there's a lot in the performance that is wanting. So thanks again, everyone. This is a short one tonight. Um, but I do hope to see you back next week. And keep the comments flowing in the chat. We will be answering them. And we are like, we want to hear all sides on this matter. We want to hear all sides on this matter because it's truly important in going forward in this election as to we um, what we are going to stand for as a people and what we expect on the campaign trail. Okay? So have a pleasant night. See you next week.